Hello everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Destiny video. Today Fantasy Flight announced the next set for Star Wars Destiny. It's called Covert Missions. They also released a bunch of spoilers for the new set, so we're just going to go ahead and take a look at the cards, going to give my thoughts on them. So first up here we have a red villain plot, construct a Death Star, cost 2 points. So it's a plot, it's Death Star and it's a mission, so missions being a new plot type, or it looks like they're only on plots at least so far. So action, remove two of your dice, each showing a resource, to place 2 resources on this plot. Then if 15 or more resources are on this plot, you win the game. So this is going to take a while to accomplish because you're going to have to be removing, remove 2 dice. They're going to have resources on them, so you're probably going to want to be building a deck that has a lot of resource sides on your dice. You remove 2 of them and then place 2 resources on this. When you hit 15, you win the game. I'm not sure how I feel about plots like this or cards like this that are very specific ways to win, because I feel we'll get to some of the more spoilers later in the video, but it feels like they're trying to shoehorn in various characters and events that will obviously be better if you're playing one of these Death Star plots, and then of course if you're not playing a Death Star plot, that character maybe becomes a little less useful. But so that is construct the Death Star. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Destroy the Death Star. This is a red hero plot, basically the red Death Star plot for hero. So Death Star is another mission. After setup, give this plot 20 shields. You can resolve your pilot and vehicle dice showing range damage against this plot. Action, if this plot has no shield, spend 1 resource to reroll 1 of your pilot dice and 1 of your vehicle dice. Then if both of those dice are showing damage, you win the game. So you're basically, instead of attacking your opponent's characters, you're going to be attacking this plot with your pilots, and then once you deplete all the shields, you can then do the action. The action is going to take a while to do this because you have to basically chip away at the shields. You're then going to have a pilot already rolled out, because it says you have to spend the resource to re-roll it. So you're going to have a resource to spend on re-rolling. The pilot's already going to have to be rolled out. And then both the pilot and the vehicle are going to have to roll damage. So again, not really sure how I feel about these plots. But this is basically an alternate win condition. So villain has build the Death Star. Hero has destroy the Death Star. But kind of, if you think about it, you have to build the Death Star before you can destroy it anyway. I digress, though. But that is destroy the Death Star. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Director Krennic, Death Star Mastermind. 10 health, 10 or 13 points. He's a leader character. 2 focus, discard, 2 discard, resource, and blank. The point value of your Death Star plot is decreased by 1, so it brings the constructed Death Star plot down to 1 point. After you activate this character, you may turn 1 of your dice to a side showing a value of 1. I don't know how I really feel about this Krennic. I feel the Krennic with Spirit of Rebellion was very thematic, had damage. It was able to generate Death Troopers. Like, he would basically go in with his personal Death Trooper bodyguards, and they would kind of just do his bidding. 10 health, that's all right. I like the 1-to-1 point ratio. I guess this does feel thematic if you are definitely trying to use the Death Star plot, because he does have the 2 resource sides. He then has the ability to, after you activate this character, you can turn 1 of your dice to a side showing a value of 1. So you can turn him or 1 of your other dice to a side showing 1 resource. If you're using the Death Star plot, you can then later in the round remove those dice to put resources on the plot to get to those 15 resources. I don't know how I feel about this character outside of that plot. I mean, the 2 focus and the 2 discard is pretty good. However, I don't know how I feel about the ability as well, just to be able to focus to 1. I feel this Krennic is definitely better if you're using it in a Death Star plot deck. I don't know how well this card's going to do outside of trying to use the Death Star plots, though. And that's one thing I really don't like about the announcement today with these cards, is if you're playing a Death Star deck, they're going to be better. If you're not playing a Death Star deck, either hero or villain, the cards and the events are not going to be as good without that Death Star plot. So if you don't want to play a Death Star plot, these characters and events might be useless to you. But that is Director Krennic. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Boba Fett, Infamous and Ruthless, 11 health, 11 or 14 points. So we get that 1-to-1 point to cost ratio, or point to health ratio, I should say. 1 range, 2 melee, disrupt, resource, and blank. He's a bounty hunter character. After an opponent's character is defeated, for each bounty on it, you may roll one of this character's character or upgrade dice into your pool. So that's kind of interesting. So you put basically throw bounties on the characters. You roll out Boba Fett, you do some damage, potentially defeating some characters, and then depending on how many bounties are on that character, you can then re-roll or roll out that many dice back off of Boba Fett. So he can basically roll in, defeat a character, depending on the bounties, roll out again. So yeah, because after it's defeated, for each bounty you may re-roll or roll one of its character or upgrade dice into your pool. I think that's a really strong ability. The health is good. I think he's got the some good damage there, so 3 damage sides. And a pretty cool ability, and not a super expensive character, so even if you're running him at Elite, you still have 16 other points to play with. So we get a two damage sides, a 1 damage side, an interesting ability to potentially get more rolls out of them, and so on. So that is Boba Fett. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Slave 1. 3 resources. This is the yellow villain support vehicle. 2 range, 2 range, 2 range, 2 indirect, disrupt, resource, and blank. Your Boba Fett and Jango Fett each have piloting. So piloting is a new keyword in this set. But what piloting is, at least from what I could gather from the article, was if you have a character with the piloting ability, you could roll out that character with a vehicle. So basically, you'll be able to roll out. Let's say you have Boba Fett in Slave 1. Slave 1 gives Boba Fett that ability. So you would activate Boba Fett, rolling out his character dice, and then rolling out Slave 1 as well. I think I was reading on Reddit that if you roll out a character with piloting or use that character to also activate a vehicle, you do not get to roll out character upgrade dice because I think that would probably be a little bit overpowered. But also, like, thematically, you're not having Boba Fett fly the ship while, pointing his blaster out of, like, a window or something like that. But pretty cool ability. So you could choose to activate Boba Fett, roll in his character dice, and then roll in the Slave 1 dice as well. So Slave 1 gives both Jango from Spark of Hope, I think Jango was in Spark of Hope, and the new Boba Fett that piloting ability. So they'll be able to roll out with Slave 1. And the Slave 1, I think, has some really good damage sides. So we have 3 damage sides, all with 2s. We also have a resource side and a disrupt. And then it'll work better with Boba Fett and Jango because they'll be able to roll out with it. So that is Slave 1. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Luke Skywalker, Red 5. 10 health for 11 or 14 points. He's an apprentice and a pilot. He has 1 range, 2 range, 2 range for a resource, plus 2 range, resource, and blank. He has piloting, so just like I talked about with the Slave 1, you'll be able to roll out Luke with a vehicle. The point value of your Death Star plot is decreased by 1, so if you're playing a Death Star deck, he'll reduce the cost of Destroy the Death Star to 1 character point. And before you resolve a support die or a vehicle piloted by this character, you may increase its value by 1. So that's pretty good. I think he's got some really good damage sides here. So 4 damage sides, 2 of them being resource costed and modified though. But also I like that he's a pilot and an apprentice, so you'll be able to put him in decks that get bonuses from apprentices, which is kind of cool. I think this is the 4th version of Luke, I think. So we had Luke from Awakenings, we had Luke from the Legacy starter set with him and Han. We then had Luke from Way of the Force, and I think this is the newest Luke. So we have Luke Skywalker, Red 5. Again, like I said earlier, I don't know how I feel about these decks and characters that are specific to having certain plots in play. But aside from that, I do think the Luke is fairly strong. He has, again, 4 damage sides and a way to increase the value of certain dice. So, before you resolve a support die or a vehicle piloted by Luke, you can increase its value by 1, which is pretty good. So that is Luke Skywalker. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Trust Your Feelings. This is a blue hero event, 0 resources. Reroll up to 2 of your dice. Then you may resolve 1 of your dice. Then you may use the action of your plot titled Destroy the Death Star for free. So, Destroy the Death Star, normally you have to spend the resource to reroll the pilot die along with the vehicle that your vehicle die. They both have to roll damage before you can actually win the game by destroying the Death Star. This allows you to do that for free, and allows you also to get some of those dice into the pool, because with that plot, you're going to have a pilot die and a vehicle die already in your pool before you can use the action on it. So that is Trust Your Feelings. Again, I don't know how I feel about these these plot specific cards, but this is definitely a way to kind of like help you get that goal faster. Again, I think cards like this outside of Death Star decks aren't necessarily that great, even though the ability you get to reroll 2 of your dice, you can resolve 1. So you can basically get to reroll 2 and resolve 1 of them as 1 action. So that on its own is all right. The added part on the plot only applies if you're playing that particular plot anyway. So that is Trust Your Feelings. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Luke Skywalker's X-Wing, blue hero support vehicle, 2 resources. 1 range, 2 range, 2 range for a resource, plus 2 range, and shield and blank. So basically the same sides as Luke's die. I believe he had the 1, the 2, the 2, and the plus 2. As a power action, reroll this die, or if Luke Skywalker is piloting this die, or piloting the support, turn this die to any side. So with piloting, Luke can basically roll in, and then with the power action, you're able to basically like rotate the die. If it's on Luke, if Luke is not piloting it, it can still be re-rolled. So good damage sides. They mirror what Luke has. We have 2 sides being resource costed and modified, but I think for 2 resources, getting 4 damage sides is pretty good. So that is Luke's X-Wing. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Trench Run. This is a 0-cost red hero event. Activate 1 of your pilots and 1 of your vehicles. Then you may spot a Death Star plot to play a card titled Trust Your Feelings from your hand or discard pile. So this is going to be in a blue-red build, of course. So you can do this. You play Trench Run. You activate 1 of your pilots and 1 of your vehicles. If you have a Death Star plot in play, you can then play Trust Your Feelings and then potentially combo that into using Destroy the Death Star, and hopefully, if you have all the shields off of it, you'll be able to just win. So that is Trench Run. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Death Star Plans. This is a red neutral upgrade. So 1 resource. As an action, exhaust this upgrade to place one resource on or remove 2 shields from your Death Star plot. So if you're playing Construct the Death Star, you can exhaust this to put a resource on it. Or if you're playing Destroy the Death Star, you can use it to remove 2 shields from your plot. And after an opponent's effect deals damage to the attached character, they may move this card to one of their characters. So the Death Star plans are basically being stolen and moved around between characters, and depending on what happens, this may end up on your opponent's characters, and they may end up using it to get either resources if they're playing the constructive Death Star plot, or exhausting it to remove shields off of the destroy the Death Star plot. That's pretty interesting, because I think this on its own, if you have basically an action to just exhaust it to get one of the effects, is a little bit too strong if your opponent doesn't have a way to also interact with it and take it. And also being able to take it is fairly thematic because the plans are being stolen and moved between characters. So that is Death Star Plans. We're going to take another quick look at the Destroy the Death Star plot, because there's something else I wanted to discuss with that card. We'll be right back with that. All right, and we are back with the plot for Destroy the Death Star. So after setup, you get 20 shields on this plot. Again, if you want to build this into a blue and red deck, you will have access to moving rocks, which I believe as soon as this card comes out, they are going to probably put this and that card on the restricted list. So if you are using moving rocks, you cannot use Destroy the Death Star. If you're using Destroy the Death Star, you can't use moving rocks. So moving rocks from, as you remember from Spark of Hope, is a 3 resource cost event. I believe it was 3. Let me see if I can actually. Um, I'll pull it up here on the SW Destiny DB. Yeah, so 3 resources. It's a blue hero event. Spot an apprentice or Jedi to move any number of shields to any number of characters. So basically, you will be able to remove all the shields off of this, distribute them to your characters, your opponent's characters, or even all the your characters, because the extra shields will just fall off anyway and not actually go on those characters. And then all you have to do then is the action part of the plot to win the game. I'm sure there'll be a clarification on that, or there'll be some kind of announcement on the restricted list to where if you're using the plot, you can't use the moving rocks event. If you're using moving rocks, you can't use this. So that was just the last quick thing I wanted to discuss with this plot and how it would interact, or how I feel what they're going to do with moving rocks, because that is basically um, just going to be almost like an instant win. So instead of actually picking away and chipping away at the shields on this, you're just able to move them all off immediately. But that's going to do it for this video. We'll be back with more spoilers as Fantasy Flight releases them. Again, this is for the Covert missions set for Star Wars Destiny. It's supposed to be coming out in the 4th quarter of this year. And again, that's going to do it for now. I want to thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Take care.